Okay, let's cover the week 3 solution. And again, I'm going over the case study or the business case study to where I'm going to start with the part of how to find the tables within this set. Because there's, if I remember correctly, up to 17 tables you could find depending upon what section you chose. Okay, so I'm going to start out with one that's relatively simple, starting at the very top. Now, when I go through these and read, it talks about charter companies providing unscheduled operations. Charter flights take place only after a customer reserves an aircraft to fly at the customer designated date and time. Now, when I look at this, I can tell that there is going to be a charter table, and I can tell that there's going to be a customer table. So starting out with a small grouping and everything that's associated with a customer is what I'm going to start with. So looking on here, I know I'm going to have a customer, and a customer is going to be related to a charter. So when I look at this on my tables, I know I'm going to have customer. And again, depending upon what standards you follow, I'm going to have a customer. I'm going to have a charter. And let's go back and see anything else that we might find within that first section. Okay. Now, as we go through here, a customer can, of course, reserve many different charter flights. And here's where we would find the relationship between them. But right now, I'm just looking for tables. Okay. For billing purposes, each charter trip is reserved by one and only one customer. Again, a relationship. Customers do not use the company's charter operations. Again, relationship. Okay, each charter trip, again, yields revenue, and it's by charges. A customer pays upon the completion of a flight. The charter flight charges are a function of the aircraft model. Even though that's not going to be associated or have dependencies upon customer, I know I'm going to have an aircraft. Okay. So on this one, I can go ahead and go in here and tell it I'm going to have an aircraft. Let's go back again. Model used. My distance flown, waiting time, special customer requirements, and crew expenses. Now that immediately tells me, again, even though it's not going to be associated with my customer, I'm going to have something that deals with employees related. So I know I'm going to have an employees here. I could have just a crew or just an employee, or I could have both. I'm not going to know until I get further into the case study. So right now, I'm going to call it a crew. And I may work with that later. Okay, let's go back. The distance flow charges are computed by multiplying the round trip by the model's charge per mile. Okay, now the charge is not going to be a table. The charge is going to be able to be calculated based upon an attribute in the model. So what the charge per mile is not going to need to be its own table. It's going to be an attribute in my aircraft or my model table. And I'm still not sure until I read down until those are a single entity or two entities. So let's keep going. Okay. Round trip miles are based on actual navigations class flown, all this information, and determination, round trip miles. At this point, again, this is a calculation. This is something that would be part of my attributes, not something that deals with the table itself. Okay, let's keep on going down. Depending on whether the customer has credit authorization, the customer may. And on here, again, credit would not be a table. Credit would be an attribute of the customer, but not a table itself. But it does talk about how the customer has a pay. So instead of having credit, we're going to have what would be considered a pay table, because it takes care of what's the amount, what's the date, who did the payment on the charge. Again, the charge limit has nothing to do with the table. It's based upon a customer. So I'm going to go back here, and I'm also going to have a payment. And we keep on going down. All right, and I can read through here. Customers may pay part or all the existing values for previous charter trips. This all deals with payments. It does say it's not tied to a specific charter trip. Okay, it can be, but it does not have to be. Again, there's a relationship. The charter mileage includes expenses of the pilot and other crew. Okay, again, this is not a table. This expense deals with an attribute. Okay, again, we're dealing with attributes here, not a specific table. But we will have to have a table that deals with pilot information. Now again, a pilot is an individual. Crew indicates multiple. So that tells me that either my pilot is going to be a type of employee or type of crew, but that tells me I'm also going to have a pilot table, because there's information that I'm going to need that's just for a pilot. And we're going back. Okay. Now, as I go through here, the charter mileage, we've already read that. If a customer requests additional crew, not required, they're charged for those crew members. Okay. Now, again, they're still crew. And the members on this are charged on an hourly basis. So we're still assigned something along the lines of an individual basis. And the hourly crew members charged based on each crew member's qualifications. So I do have crew that I'm dealing with. So I'm back to, I've got all different types of employees that are working here. Crews, pilots, anything else that I need to work with. So instead of making one table for each one, I am going to have a table for crew. I am going to have a table for pilot, but there's all other kinds of different employees. So it makes more sense to also have an employee table. And within that employee, they could have, each employee might have a different job description, or multiple employees might have the same job description. So it makes sense, instead of continually typing in description, 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 to have a job table that I would have all my jobs listed here and only have the number come back to employee. Okay, so we're continuing on here. Now that employee also opens up the possibility here, when I go back and read, that each one has their own qualifications. Each one has their own academic or their education based with it. So here's where I will deal with the fact that, again, the qualifications could have a code. Because of the relationship, I have a lot of employees that will have the same qualifications. Or an employee might only have one of the qualifications. So that tells me I'm going to need something that will allow me to work with, again, qualification. And I'm not saying that I'm not going to have more tables. I'm just now looking at this and trying to determine on what my initial tables are. I might have to come back and do some bridge tables later on if I have any many-to-many relationships. Let's go back and let's look at some more. Okay. The database must be able to handle crew assignments. So again, here I have multiple crew to an assignment. These assignments, again, are just like our jobs. Each one can have a code that I can take back to the crew. So I'm going to need an assignment. And how I want to call these tables, it's up to you. I'm just making up my names. You might call it a flight assignment. You can call it anything you want to there. All right, let's go back again. Each charter trip requires the use of an aircraft, and a crew flies each aircraft. And I go back. Did I actually put an aircraft? No, I did. Yes, I did. Here's my aircraft. You know, now that I think about it, it talked about aircraft model, but there's multiple aircraft that can have one model number, and model can be assigned to multiple aircraft. So it would also make sense to come back in here and say, really? So I don't have to have typing the same aircraft, or I'm sorry, module name, how many seats it has, how much I'm going to charge for it. Let's just go ahead and create a model table, and I'll link it back to aircraft with its primary key to its secondary key, or I'm sorry, its primary key back to its foreign key. All right, let's continue on and look. It gives us a lot of information we don't really need unless we're specifically looking for attributes. So the smaller piston engine powered charter aircraft requires a crew consisting only of a single pilot. Again, these are things we can work with on attributes or queries when we're trying to come up with some type of payment. Because larger aircraft, total of 1,200 pounds or more, and jet power require a pilot and a co-pilot. Well, when I look at that, it doesn't necessarily tell me anything other than a co-pilot is just another pilot. So based upon a condition, I'm going to have multiple. That's coming up with a charge. That's not coming up with anything other than that particular query, charge based upon a query. Okay, let's keep on going. All of this, I have to have flight attendants as part of the crew. Well, that's just another employee. So that would be a job description with an employee. Engineer, that's just another employee. Loadmaster, another employee, and the loadmaster is the job description. Okay, so let's keep on going. As I go on down, I can say that I need to create a summary of all charter trips, expenses, and revenues. That wouldn't necessarily be a table because all that information already exists in another table. This report is just a report. You pull information from all the tables. So again, that would be a query nothing to do with creating an individual table. Okay, and it talks about this. Now, things like trip date, time, destinations, aircraft numbers, these are attributes. All of these are attributes that I will pull in for the report, but they're not tables themselves. Okay, I can continue on down, but I think you get the general idea of what I'm talking about when I try and find all the different tables. When we get down and look with things like they have to have some type of testing and what are the results, well, we have all these tests that employees have to take, but if I take it straight from test to employee, it would be a many-to-many relationship, so I'll probably have, again, a bridge in there. When I look at pilots, pilots have license and ratings. So when it gets down to this information in here, we're discussing the things such as their certifications, their license, their testing. So off the pilot, I'm going to have a license and rating. And this one did that to me again. Okay. And I can tell you right now, from pilot to license and rating, it's going to be a many-to-many to both of them. So we're going to need a bridge between the license and the rating. So that's two more that I'm going to have a bridge for. And again, I can name it anything I want to. Just for right now, I'm going to do a bridge for the license so I can trigger that in my memory later on. A bridge for the rating. Okay. So I look at these so far: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So there's a few more that I need to go through and look at, and it may be that they are bridges that I'm looking for. But you get the idea now on what I'm talking about when I go through and look at all this information. License, things of that nature. Most of these data formats, this gives me pretty much the test description and the test code, the primary key, and the description, those two attributes of a test. And when I look at some of the others, there's other things I have to look at. Here, the employee is related to the test code, which results is in the middle. Same thing on the license or certificate. These are just reports that are generated. They're not the tables themselves. They may be attributes, but not the tables themselves. All right, so on this one, I gave you a few examples of the business rules. And then also, that was the last assignment. Now you have to write the first one. You don't have to do the tables, the cardinalities, and all this. This is just for the business rules, and we covered that one. I want to go on to the next one to where we did the tables. Now, I could also go from here and do the attributes of the tables, but I want to stop right there, let you think about it, go over the case study and see how I related those again, and see if you can find where I came up with the license and the rating, because I didn't specifically show those to you. Good luck. We will do the keys and the attributes in the next one.